So currently it is like around 120 or so. I'm not sure.
Recording in progress.
Let me check. It is ending right around here. 82 questions. Yes, 83 questions. So I already mentioned like what you need to like keep a note about it, and some of the methods we already talked. So I'm just gonna ask a few questions, then we can continue with the batch classes. I know you didn't see anything about the batch classes. You have no idea. But while explaining some Apex classes, I also mentioned about the batch classes. So according to that knowledge, can you tell me if the batch classes are like synchronized or asynchronized?
They are asynchronized, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. And also, like, do you guys remember any kind of like governor limits?
Little bit.
Can you give me a couple examples?
For SOQL, I remember it was 100 for the queries. I believe 100 for the synchronized, 200 for asynchronized. And that number goes 50,000 for the SOQL records. So both of them the same, asynchronized and synchronized.
Yeah, when we retrieve any SOQL query, when we apply an SOQL query, we are gonna be able to retrieve maximum 50,000 for both of them. That's correct. What about SOSL?
I remember the numbers were a lot less for SOSL.
Yeah.
Let's say 20.
Yeah,
Okay.
20.
Is that 20 just for the synchronized or asynchronized also?
That could be
I
same
think
for both.
both. Yeah.
Okay. And if I ask you to type me database class like as a database that insert, can you send me the syntax? Or you can help me to write it down here.
Database dot insert result.
Database dot insert result.
Yes, together. And square bracket.
So you said these are together?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And square bracket. And we will give that a name. Usually we use result.
Okay.
And that's equal, an equal sign. Database dot insert open parentheses.
Okay.
That's inside the parentheses, it's going to be our collection list, like ACC list or OP list.
Okay.
And yeah, comma, then that part has to be false and close parentheses and semicolon.
Okay, when this is false, like what is the difference between this database class and DML insert operation?
If this false was true, that would be the exact same thing as insert operation, like a DML operation. This makes it, even though it's false, implement the correct ones type of.
Okay, so if we are using false here, like what makes the difference between database class and DML insert operation?
It partially implements the correct, it implements the correct portion
Okay,
and leaves out the false portion, but it's not just completely ignores the whole code because there are some missing information or some false information there. Still, it implements the correct portion versus the DML only if there is a mistake or missing data, it's not like it completely just ignores the whole code. It doesn't execute anything.
yeah. For the DML operations or DML insert, for example, in our example, we can say all or not, which means it is gonna insert all or it is gonna ignore all, or none of them will be inserted. That is working with this logic, but for the database class, it is gonna work with the partially. This is the biggest difference. Okay, sounds good. And can anyone else can help me to write down the syntax for the trigger? I think everybody's here, right? Yeah. Ebrunil, can you help me to write the syntax for the trigger? Ebrunil, I can see you are here.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my son was here. I wasn't
Oh,
available. I couldn't understand the question.
Yeah, can you help me to type the like syntax of the trigger?
Trigger. Okay, I can try.
Yeah, let me help you. Just starting with the trigger.
You mean trigger class syntax or trigger syntax?
Plus syntax.
Class syntax.
But trigger is not a class.
I know. I mean our object handler class.
No, handler is a class.
Yeah.
I'm asking the trigger,
Okay.
which is starting with trigger. That's why I put the trigger.
Okay, trigger, and the next part is our trigger name.
Tell me something like account trigger.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So, Aslı, can you help me to go on?
Excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Trigger, if you are working on account object, it should be on account and open parenthesis. We are using authentication before, after,
Is it-
update, delete.
Are they authentication?
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure for the name. What was the name?
Trigger events.
Events. Yeah. Events. Sorry. If update.
It goes on like that.
And yeah,
Okay. So, Tunç, can you help me to write down the test class?
Test class. It's starting with the is test at is test, and the next row we create in the class name.
Now, can you check how it is starting?
So we're going on like public class, and whatever what kind of object are we working on, we giving that kind of sample name on it, like account.
Account trigger handler.
Yes, and then we implementing the test word at the end to be sure what page we're working on, what class we're working on.
Account trigger handler test.
Curly braces, and then we pass in the next row, and we implementing again at is test.
This is for,
This is for the method name,
okay.
and then we pass in the next row, and we starting to create in the method name. What kind of method we would like to test from the handler. We give in the name, and
So
starting.
is it supposed to be public or private?
It could be public or private. Sanjay
What
mentioned
is the best practice?
the best practice is the public, the reachable.
Private.
Private?
Yesterday, Sanjay mentioned that, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
said that
catch it.
public,
I couldn't catch it. So it should be
public
static. Yeah.
Okay.
We could mention void because we are not expecting any return during the method. Depends on the method. So
Okay.
we give in the name of the method.
Definition.
Parentheses, then curly braces. First parentheses, open and close, then curly braces. So after curly braces, we start in the creating the DML operation first. Like if we implement in an object the record, we creating the record first. We usually trying to go on bulk records, at least 20 of them recommended through the Salesforce. We creating bulk records first. Then, if needed, we create a user, then trying to test them through the code, not like the UI said.
Okay. So, like, what is the purpose of this private?
Because it's only giving us a chance to check through this page, through this class. It's not reachable from the organization through the Salesforce because it's a private.
So can we say that, can we call this method from outside?
No, because
Okay.
it's private.
And okay, that's the thing I was expecting. So Aslı, can you tell me about like test class? What should be the features like while you are writing any test class, like what are the considerations you have or what the best practice says about that?
Like making it private, the method,
Okay.
like bulk, inserting bulk records,
Okay.
at least 20 records. And then, is it the one? Oh, positive behavior.
What should be the percentage at least?
75 coverage.
Code coverage should be at least 75%.
75.
Okay. And what else do you remember?
Positive test cases or positive behavior and negative behavior.
We need to check both of the behaviors, like the positive and negative.
And then restricted user.
It should cover the single records and the bulk records. Also restricted user. Okay. Like when you say like 75% at least code coverage, does it include everything? Or
Test
is there any
classes.
Yeah.
Test classes are excluded. Comments, blank lines, curly brackets, curly brackets. Yeah. And
So you said like test classes are excluded. What about test methods?
methods, they are not, they are included,
Are they?
I guess.
Is everyone agree with us?
No, I believe test annotation and test class is not covered by code coverage.
So why test class is excluded? Because of this is test annotation. What do we have on the test method? This is the method. We have is test annotation. So test methods and test classes, they are excluded.
Okay.
Okay. And then like if I go through one of the example, let me check. This is where it's supposed to go. Just give me a second. It's not accepting because this is that's weird. It's not allowing me to move my other screen. Just give me a second. Yes, because it was. Okay. So I'm gonna pull one of the example as a test class. This is the test class. Okay. So from here, like you guys already mentioned this stuff, and Tunç mentioned that we need to create some test data as a bulk, at least 20. Then these are the stuff we need to check, right? Why do we use the test start and stop test and start test?
We are checking the DML operation if it's working or not properly.
Yeah, but what is the purpose? Like we can check that DML operation, like this is the DML operation, but why we are writing down in between the start test and stop test? What is the purpose of using these two? If you guys remember, what did we say about this? We said that when we use the test.start test, which is gonna refresh the governor limits. we are refreshing. That's why like we are just trying to insert or use the insert or any other DML operations in between start test and stop test. So the purpose of using the main purpose, I should say, start test, it is gonna refresh the governor limits. That's why we are using it. And why do we use the system.assert?
It proves that the code behaves properly.
Yes.
Or it's comparing.
Like what is the main purpose why we are testing our classes or testing our code? The main purpose is that we are just checking like if our code is running as expected. And how can we understand that? If we use the system.assert, then we can see what is the expected result and what should be the like actual result. In that way, we can compare expected and actual. If both of them are same, then we can say our code is running properly, right? And also, yesterday, what was the last example yesterday we did? I think it was under the
I think it was opportunity.
opportunity.
Delete
Prevent,
opportunity.
yeah, prevent deletion.
Okay, so this is our test class, right? And we use something different. Like we were using start test and stop test each and every time. Everything is fine. But if this is the correct one. Okay, we use something different. Why did we use this?
Because, sorry, I jump up like that, but because we created a user, because the user restriction on the requirement. Because if we deleting an opportunity, user must be if the opportunity clause won or lost, and if you would like to delete it, user must be an administrator. So if user administrator, we need to create it, and we need to run it through the test code, test class, to make sure it's choosing a user as an administrator. That's why we use that run as.
So in
user.
generally to
But-
test your
but-
application and different user contacts.
Yeah, we can say that. I know Tunç was trying to explain that, like, but the thing is here, whenever we run this, since we have this system administrator profile, right? We are gonna be able to like run this thing. Why did we use this like system that run as? We are just using run as if we are going to test our application under the like different user. Which user? This user which we created. So if this user has like demo user profile, then it is gonna act that way. Like if you guys remember, sometimes we were just doing some sharing rules, and to check that sharing rules, we were just logging in as a second user on the Cognito window, and we were checking from that, right? We are doing the same thing from the backend. How? We are creating that user with the profile name, and then we are testing using system.runAs method. This is the user which we created here. So I was just trying to ask, like, why do we need the run as method? But I just wanted to show that also we already used that as an example in one of our use case. So today, Sanjay said that we are going to, like, until now, what we were doing each and every time for each and every use case, we were just creating a test data, right? Here and also here and also here. Yesterday, he mentioned that instead of like creating different test data in the same object, same class, we are gonna create one test data and we are gonna use the same test data for different methods inside the class. So how can we do that? I know practically you didn't do any example for that, but we mentioned this while we are talking about the test classes. Any chance?
What is it? Did you ask the question? I didn't get it.
Yeah, my question is that if you would like to create one test data, for example, this one, and you would like to use this test data for each and every method inside the same class. So I'm inside the trigger handler like test class. And I would like to create only one test data for the opportunity trigger handler test class. And I would like to use that for each and every test method.
Okay, so you don't have to create every
Again
time.
and again. Yes, I don't
Mhm.
want to do that.
Good luck with that.
Thank you. But we talked about this. At least, do you guys remember we talked about this?
I don't remember.
Okay. Let me remind you guys then.
Did he mention it yesterday?
No, we talked about it.
Oh,
We didn't do anything practically, but we mentioned this. Test setup annotation. So these kind of scenario questions you can get most probably about the like test classes, because there are a bunch of details and there are a bunch of methods here. And instead of like, what is test setup annotation, they can ask you the question this way. So the main purpose of using this test setup annotation, you are creating only one test data and you are using it for the different methods. So I saw one more.
so we use it in the same class, but different methods.
Yeah, like think about like this. In here, we are inside the one class, right? This is our class. Inside this class, we have different methods. This is one of them. And we created this one as a test data. So Sanjay is gonna show today, we are gonna create only one test data instead of each and every, under the each and every method. After then, we are gonna use this test data for each method. because I have here, this is my fourth, fifth, sixth, 6 methods I have here. Instead of creating for test data for each and every method, we are gonna create it under the class and we are gonna use it inside the method.
Like, can we
As
call,
long as that method is inside the same class.
like, can we call like op list from another method without like creating a list again?
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, we are creating a list here, then we are just making a for each loop or for loop for that, right? So if you create this one under the class, then he's gonna show you how to like use that test data for each and every method underneath the same class.
Mhm.
So how it is possible? With the test setup.
So we are gonna create it just under class, and then in the
Is-
method, we are just gonna perform the DML operation and then the system assert.
Yeah, you can say that.
I think it is easier for developers.
It is easier, but if it is like all the user cases like related to that test data, or that test data maybe should have like more
Information.
fields
Yeah.
inside, because according to the requirement, if this method's user case requires like only 3 of them, it is okay maybe. Maybe the other method is gonna require like more than 5 or 6 fields here. So it needs to cover that portion, that test data. But he's gonna show that is possible and like how we can success that with the test setup. Since we are going to see that, I just wanted to remind that. And let me think about what was test visible method. I saw it somewhere here. So we said as a best practice, we can make the methods private, right? Since while they are still private, it is possible we can reach them, like at least we can see them from outside. For that, we need to mark them as a test visible annotation. So whenever you see something like at test setup, at test visible, as at is test annotation, any of them, you should know what is the use for. Why do we need to know them? Or like if I ask, like I mentioned this one a lot, so see all data if it is true, like why do we use this one? Or should we use this or we should not? Did you get it? Which one I mentioned? Is test. See all data equal to true. So as a best practice, should we use this one or not? If not, why? If do we need to use as a best practice, why again? So you guys all have this PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is inside the PowerPoint. If we use this method, see all data through, then what's going to happen? Our test class will be able to reach all the database. And this is the thing we don't want to. We don't want to write some like test class which is going to cover all the database. That's why we don't want to use this. As a best practice, we should not use this. Do you guys remember this, or at least one person?
Unfortunately, not me.
Not you?
Not me.
Okay, can you say right here? When you guys say you don't remember, I am just like, you guys make me doubt by myself. But these are the stuff
is-
we covered.
This is our strategy.
Yeah, I got that. So this is the one we should not use it. Okay. So there are a bunch of questions for the test class. You should be ready for it. I asked like a few questions previously about the triggers, so I'm not gonna ask that. But on your next interview, you are gonna be responsible for the admin and developer portion also. So just keep in your mind. Currently, it is like 83 slides here, but it's gonna be more when we go through the batch classes. All right. Do you guys have any question about the like Apex classes, triggers, or test classes? Otherwise, I'm gonna continue with the batch classes. And most of the stuff will be like, doesn't gonna make any sense in the beginning because you guys never use it and you don't know exactly what it is. But at least we talk about that, like, why do we need to use the batch classes? Do you guys remember that portion?
A little bit.
Like how?
I am trying to put them all together in my mind.
Yeah. What was batch means? Like, we said this is batch 1. This is batch 2. And this is batch 3. And we draw something like this. We said, just assume that this is the governor limit. Right? And
Oh,
nobody wants to like pass through this line. We need to stay underneath this governor limit. While we are doing this, like, if you guys remember, I was asking Sanjay, like, what is the Apex transaction? And he was telling me, like, think about like when you go to the bank and you are just trying to withdraw some money, even if you just withdraw $10, it is one transaction. Even if you like withdraw 1,000 or 5,000 or $10,000, it is also one transaction. So, and he mentioned that if you just think about the one DML insert operation, only one single record. This is one transaction. This is Apex transaction. What we are trying to do is, like, instead of like one transaction, if we are gonna stay underneath the governor limit, we can just try to like insert more than single record. That's why we are using the batch classes, because it is gonna still stay underneath the governor limits, which is safe side. But instead of one single record, just think about like the bulk records. We were saying the same thing. Instead of like one single record, if I'm gonna be able to insert like 100 records, why not? If I'm gonna be able to insert like 200 records at the same time, which is only one transaction again, I can use the batch classes. Because it is gonna make me to stay on the safe side, under the governor limits. This is safe side. If you go over it, you are gonna get an error. Does it make sense now?
Yes.
Okay. So that's why we are using the batch classes. Instead of like one single record, we are just inserting or updating or deleting bunch of records together inside that batch class. And we know that we are gonna stay under the governor limit, which is the safe side. All right. So there are some new terms you are gonna get used to it. It's gonna take some time, but we need to talk about them. There is a queue, like while we are talking about the batch classes. They call it Apex Flex Queue. They call for each and every batch, it is a job. So when any job is submitted for execution, for example, you are, it is hard to draw this thing, so I'm just gonna show you from the UI side if I can. Say we are just inserting some opportunity, but if I just save this one, it is gonna be only single record, right? It's gonna turn to a single record, opportunity record. But I want you guys to assume this one is gonna be my batch. And inside this one, I am gonna insert, say, 200 records. I'm just showing this, just an imagination. When you submit here, say this is the submit button. When you submit this, you are sending this one to one of the queue. That queue is like making your submitted request. It is taking it to the holding status. Since it is in this holding status, it is gonna take it to the Apex Flex Queue. For what? it is gonna hold there. Whenever it is time to go for that job or for that batch, then it is gonna run. Because you are not inserting single record. You are inserting like 200 records. When you submit it, it is going to the holding status and it's taking a place on the Apex Flex queue.
And what was the issue with that? Taking to queue and then what happens over there? I couldn't.
So I'm gonna explain that. Actually, there is another. Let me check one thing. There is another slide. I think it's better if I show that one earlier. Just a second. Not this one again. Okay. So there are some different status for the Apex Flex queue. Whenever you submit it, it's gonna take a place as a holding inside the Apex Flex queue. What's happening over there? These are the status, like 6 of them or 7 of them. So it is just holding and waiting for its execution, which is the queue. And then there is a preparing status. So there are some methods inside the batch classes. One of them is start method. When the start method is being invoked and the status can last a few minutes, it depends on like how many records you have inside your batch class. If it is thousands of them, then it's gonna take some time. Then it's gonna be processing status. If user just wanted to stop to executing that batch, we call that one abort. We use this term for the like airplanes also. Like they are on the runway and they are just trying to take off. They speed up over the runway, but they notice something is wrong. Like even if they do lots of check previously, just before the takeoff, if they notice something is wrong, then they are gonna abort the takeoff, which means they are not gonna continue. Same thing here. If user notice something and user wants to like stop executing, they can abort it. There is a completed status for the batch classes. So it doesn't matter if it is failed or success. It can be on the completed status while they are inside the Apex Flex queue. And there is a failed status if they have any system failure or something during the execution, then they can get the failed status. So these are kind of the status, like 6, 7 of them. These are valid for the Apex Flex queue. And I was mentioning that there are different methods inside the batch classes. This is the syntax you guys need to memorize. So until now, we were seeing that it is like public, private, global, but we never use the global. We can use the global for the batch classes. But I don't know if Sanjay is gonna continue with the global or if he wants to make it like public. But this is the syntax, like whatever is the name of the batch class, we are gonna put here. We are gonna say implements. Then we need to use database.batchable. Then we need to put as object here. This is one method. This is another method. This is the third method. So batch class requires 3 methods inside, not only one. The first one is database.queryLocator start. That's why they call it start method. Start method has some parameter inside, which is database.batchable context BC. They are using BC, like most of the developer use the BC, like it's just a name. Like when we create any list for the account, we say ACC list. They call this one like BC, but you can put something else, but this is the syntax they are using. So these stuff should be here. Otherwise, this is not gonna work. So the start method here, we said preparing, even the start method has been invoked, the status can last in a few minutes according to the size of the batch. So it doesn't matter if like it is gonna continue, like after the preparing, we have other status, right? Processing. So actual processing will be starting with the executing the method. So start method, execute method, and finish method. For the execute method, we are using database.batchable context BC, whatever we put here on the start, we are using that one here. And we are creating a list of the records, whatever the as object. And then we have finish method, database.batchable context BC again. That's why I colored them same color. In that way, you can remember like it is same here, here, and here. And there are 2 voids here. These 3 methods should be here. So this is one of the things you can add to your like memory box.
Where is the second method's open parenthesis?
I think I forgot to make it like this is not the one. I should exit this one and correct it.
Maybe I think the logic is not similar to test class logic, right?
Don't think about the test classes because I explained this is something different. So let me check something. Batch class, using the batch class. Okay. Right here, it's supposed to be. When I color them a lot, I think I forgot that. Yeah, thank you. Right now, I have like three same slides in front of me. That's why, like, when I click on this thing, it's just changing the slide again. Okay, so no need to worry. This is one thing you're supposed to memorize. Just think that way. And he's gonna explain also. But don't compare this one with the test classes, because the purpose of test class is totally different than batch classes. What was the purpose for the test class? We are just trying to check and compare what we are expecting from the code, and if it is giving us the actual result as we expected, we are good. But in here, we are trying to stay underneath the governor limits. That's why, like, we need to continue with the batch classes if we have a bunch of records. If it is not like, how can I say, 2-3 records, or if it is not like only 20 records.
I have a question, Mevcut Bey.
Yeah.
Those are duplicate records or not?
No. Think about like this. Inside the Salesforce, you will not insert any duplicate records. When you are working any place, like, nobody is expecting you to insert the duplicate records. These are all different records, and you are just think about the insert operation. Okay, you are
I
just
understand
trying
that.
to insert like 3,000 records together.
Yeah. When you showed us to manually from UI creating a new opportunity, I thought the batch classes are against to duplication rules in Salesforce,
No.
but I wasn't sure, so I need to ask this question. No, it's clear for me. Okay.
Okay, so, like, while answering any question, like, don't mention anything about the duplicate records, because nobody wants to see the same record like more than once in the same org. And since we are inserting, for example, 3,000 records, they are totally different than each other. So what is the advantage here? Why do we use this one? This 3,000 records insert is one transaction, and our one single record insert is one Apex transaction. That's why, like, that governor limits will be refreshed. If you just think, like, if you try to insert 3,000 records one by one, is it an efficient way to do it? Because you are going to spend some time, right?
So much time.
It's going to be a lot of time. And, like, instead of that, there is a way to do it. If you are working with the big data, you have to use the batch classes. While you are using this, since we said, like, there is a queue, they call it Apex Flex queue. That Apex Flex queue, it is gonna be enabled after you submit, and it is gonna allow you to submit like 100 batch jobs. So at the same time, like, how many batch jobs? When I say jobs, you can just think about one batch or like batches. They call it batch jobs. So up to 100 batch jobs can be on the holding status. So when I say holding status, what you should remember now, like there was 7 different status, right? Here. You can hold up to 100 batches here. But do you know how many records you have inside that 100 batches? You don't know, but I can tell you the max and I can tell you the min. If you have 100 batch jobs is holding under the holding status inside the Apex Flex queue, the minimum records you have 100 and maximum should be
It's in one batch, right?
200,000.
In one batch, right?
No, I'm just talking about the total number. So in here, when it says you can have up to 100 batches, it is just talking about these boxes, which I drew before. So you can hold up to 100 of them on the holding status.
And we have records, bulk records in this batch.
We have records inside for each and every batch jobs. This batch job can have minimum, if I can write, only one record, and maximum it can have 2,000 records. So you are gonna be the one who is gonna describe how many records you would like to insert in a single batch job. But your min is 1. It's supposed to be, like if I say batch here, it should be in between 1 and 2,000. But you are gonna describe according to this requirement.
So that number that you gave us, like min 100, max 200,000, that is for like in total of 100 batch? Like,
No,
because
this
it's up to,
this is for single.
yes, but you said before minimum 100 and maximum 200,000,
Okay, why did I say that? Because I
because
said
it's 100, right?
up to
Yeah.
100 batch
Yes.
jobs you can hold
Mhm.
here. So if you are using one record for each, it is gonna be minimum 100.
Mhm.
If you are
Yeah.
using 2,000 records for a single batch job, then it is gonna make 200,000. So I just gave that numbers to imagine like what kind of records or amounts we are talking about. Because until now we were just doing the for loop and just inserting like 5 records, 10 records, 20 records, right? But it's gonna be more than that. Sometimes. That's why we are using this batch classes, because we need to minimize and we need to stay on the safe side for the governor limit. At the same time, we need to write something which is gonna like give us the requirement, reach the goal like in a minimum time. So does it make sense until now?
Yes.
It's,
Okay.
Yes.
so in what condition are we using this batch classes? Like, is it because when we are maybe exporting some like mass data from somewhere, or
Yeah,
like
right.
loading data?
I think that's a good question. Like, that's why I placed some question like that. Just give me a second. I'm gonna find it to you because
I think it's to stay on the safe side, like governor limit. We don't want to exceed it.
yeah,
So that's how we use that batch jobs.
we need the batch, but I'm just gonna explain another way. The question Ebru just asked, it looks like something like this. If we are gonna insert like bunch of records, if we are taking it from somewhere and inserting inside the Salesforce, we are using the data loader, right?
Right.
So if we have the data loader, why do we need to use this batch class instead of like data loader? If it is an insert or update or delete operation, right? We can do the same thing with the data loader. We can do it on the data loader if we use the CSV file, if you remember. But if you cannot implement your logic, if you cannot do the calculation over that Excel sheet or CSV file, you have to do it with the batch classes. Because some of the stuff you are not gonna be able to like do some calculations at the runtime, because if it is something static, you can insert it like to the Excel sheet. But you want some calculations, they are gonna work on at the runtime. And if you are implementing any complex logic, which like Excel cannot do that, then you have to go with the batch classes. For example, like creating some relationship. If there is a relationship, like while you are implementing it, you cannot do it over the Excel sheet. That's why we are using. But the main logic is while we are working with the big data or bunch of records, I use this bunch a lot, I don't know, but because when you say bunch, it can be like 100 or it can be like 50,000. If you are trying to do some DML operation with a bunch of records, and since Salesforce has some governor limits, we need to use the batch classes. And we should explain that transaction logic. Like even if I use a single like insert operation, it's gonna be one Apex transaction. But instead of that, if I insert 2,000 records at the same time inside the one batch class, it is also one transaction. Why do I need to go one by one? All right, if this is okay, I just need to go and continue from the beginning. Okay, so there is another question you can ask, like, since there is a queue, Apex Flex queue, like, can we change the order? Normally, it works with the first in, first out. First comes, first served, right? It works with this logic. But what you can do, sometimes you can change the order if one of the batch is urgent for you other than the other batch classes. So How can you do that? Like you can create something like this. Boolean is success equal to system.flexq.move before job. Job to move ID, job in queue ID. So basically, each batch we said it is a job, right? You are just trying to move some jobs like to the early stage because you want them to run early. For that, you need to provide this move ID, and also you need to provide the queue ID. Because we said, for example, for the holding status, it can hold up to 100 jobs, batch jobs. Any question until now? There are some questions about the numbers you might get. This is one of them. So we said on the holding status, it can hold up to 100 batch jobs, right? But at the execution, like how many active batches or how many batches can run parallelly, like at the same time? Salesforce by default, it allows only 5 active batches running at the same time. The others should be waiting on the queue. So even if you send 100 batch jobs with including 20 records inside. Do you want me to draw, or you can just try, but each and every time I'm drawing the same thing. So if you have 20 records for each job and you have 100 of them, the max it can be these 5. So it can execute 5 of them together, but nothing more than that. If you send 100 jobs like this, the other 95 will be waiting on the queue.
Do we
But-
need one more box?
Yes. So if we send 200 records inside here for each batch, then at the same time, we can insert 200 times 5, which is 1,000. If we have 2,000 records inside, what should be the max? 10,000. So what can be the maximum records you can insert at the same time while you are using the batch classes? This is the number, 1,000. 10,000, I'm sorry. Because it can run up to 5 batches at the same time. And for each batch, you can insert maximum 2,000, which can give you this number, 10,000 records at the same time.
May I ask you something?
Yes, sure.
Maybe you mentioned, but I missed it. there can be, for example, in first box 2000 and the second box has just 1000 and the other is different. But in total, of course, it should be the 10,000 maximum. But can they have different values? But in total, 10,000. I'm just curious about that.
Do you think it is gonna be possible if you just put 1000 here?
No. Yeah,
It's not gonna give you 10,000, right? I'm just
but
trying to show
the-
the maximum numbers at the
Yeah.
same time while
all
running the batch classes.
all batches need to have same jobs. Is this correct? Same.
All batches, I should say something like this. For example, we are just talking about the even numbers right now, right? So
Yeah.
instead of even numbers, say we have a record of I'm just gonna delete some of them. So, and I'm gonna say here, I have 1,234 records. How you can manage this? It is up to you, I said. You can insert these records in a single batch because it is in between 1 and 2000. Right?
Yes.
But you can do like 400 for each. So how many left? 34. You can just insert that 34 here. It is up to you. Which means it doesn't have to be the same amount records inside the batch, but you are the one you are gonna describe it. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So in that case, you are not gonna use this one.
Fifth one.
And also, I'm gonna mention something else about this. For example, how many like batches you needed. Because we talk about the minimum and maximum records you can insert in a one batch job, right? But if you don't describe anything, then what's gonna happen? Say you didn't describe it to 2000, or you didn't describe it to 1 or something like that, or you didn't even determine any number in between 1 and 2000. Then by default, Salesforce will put 200 records for each batch job. So in this example, if you didn't put anything, how many like batch jobs you will have? You didn't determine the numbers of the records.
Is there a better way, or is there an advantage of separating the records into like 5 different batches, or like if they're under 2000, just put them in only like one? Is it more manageable if they are like spread out in 5?
If it is better to split them up.
It's better? Okay.
Yeah. And in this example, for example, I'm just asking you to like, how do you manage, like if you didn't describe like how many records you need to put inside this, like each batch. And don't focus only these 5 batches, because I just was trying to show you guys about like at the same time, it can handle only 5 batches, but in this question, like you don't need to worry about it, because we are not checking like how many records at the same time you are going to insert. We are not looking for that. The only thing I am just trying to see here, if you don't describe any number in between 1 to 2000, as a default, Salesforce will assign 200 records for each batch, which means they are gonna assign like 6 bucks here, 6 batches. Each and every of them, they are gonna take 200. I'm not writing down to others, they are same. And then you are gonna have 34 more, right? So they are gonna put that one in a different batch as a 34. So in total, you are gonna have 7 batches. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to go further. I think we covered some of them, and I'm just trying to show you what we covered. We talked about data loader and the other one, and this is the one, for example, I was just trying to explain. So it's not trying to make them even, like 6.1 batches it requires. It is gonna roll up to 7, because as a default, it's gonna put 200 records inside. This is a default value. So when somebody asks you the question, you should be careful about what they are saying exactly. If it is maximum, it is 2000. If it is minimum, it is 1. If it is like default value, it is 200. Lots of numbers, right? But that is what it is. And we covered this one also. We can repeat tomorrow, no worries. We can continue tomorrow. I'm just gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna see you guys in the Sanjay's class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See you guys
Thank-
tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.